In a lot of horror these days, we often don't see a lot of pieces of continuous works that develop and improve upon the quality of their scares. In fact, the majority of the horror that most people are familiar with are hour to 3 hour long, albeit easily digestible, pretty bite-sized scares that are adequate enough to spook whoever's consuming such a form of media with subtext that won't resonate with them long term. But on the other hand, what does horror look like when it's continuously improved on and refined throughout its existence? To anyone with a brain cell count over nothing, there are obviously horror TV shows, multi-part documentaries, and in earlier eras of film, serial movies that came out in consecutive parts, comparable to mini-series today. Another form of this type of scare that's constantly improved on and made better as discoveries and developments take place are video games. It's not uncommon to see a video game with a beta release put out so people can test it to see how it works, what bugs need to be fixed, what could be added, etc. Many of the horror games in this category have gotten exponentially better because of this public beta testing type format. One notable example that's had plenty of additions, improvements, bug fixes, creative points of interest, and overall betterment is one of Puppet Combos because of course it is. You know I can't stop talking about them. Enter Stay Out of the House, a survival horror experience where the goal is to most efficiently get out of the house without getting killed by the butcher. There are two preludes to the game put out by Puppet Combo, the one in Stay Out of the House and Night Shift. One where the player gets abducted, and the in-game prelude where the player wanders onto the abductor's property. However the player canonically got into the house, they're sealed in a cage in which they have to break out of and navigate through the house to escape through one way or another, navigating through the endless obstacles and oddities in the house. I really think this makes for a great and innovative premise for a horror game, as many have been about escaping certain places, but not many are based off of this 80s style VHS aesthetic that's so haunting. The sense of paranoia, isolation from the outside world, and claustrophobia is really heightened in this game, since there's definitely a chance that the butcher could be right around the corner, or that his wheelchair-bound mother could spot you and wish she would go back to watching Wheel of Fortune or whatever old people do to distract themselves from the fact that their social security money is getting siphoned away from them. The late 20th century style overlays don't help with easing your feeling of dread either, since any one of them brings its own aesthetic along with it and can remind people of its era of horror media. It goes along perfectly with the algorithmic, deduction-based, almost puzzling methods in the gameplay the player needs to use to escape that really requires a lot of creative intuition to figure out and even more to develop and put into a game. The majority of the gameplay is getting the items, trying to run from the butcher, getting the items, trying to run from the butcher, and repeating the process. But the game doesn't get stale fast and constantly throws new challenges at you around every turn. I swear you'll never look at a bed the same way again after playing this game, since you'll have a totally newfound respect for it.
No. Is that a dog? I swear, is he literally behind these curtains? I think he's like out the bathroom in another room.
Huh. The first time the deranged lunatic didn't check the shower. Since you might be weaponless for a time, all you can do is hide from the butcher, as not much can be done to lose him. And that's not mentioning all of the bear traps, dead-end, confined spaces, and limited stamina you have. I'm glad many elements have been added into the game since its inception, since without them I don't think it would be as good of an experience as it is the time I write this. More rooms make the plot and stage design much more intricate and less linear, even with every little touch, making this game's lore even deeper, not to mention the fact that the immersion is only bolstered. Every element seamlessly fused into one scream-inducing experience by masterful game design makes for a horror experience that's been crafted, refined, and polished over time to create a horror experience that's not to be messed with. Sound plays a pivotal role in both the player's immersion and gameplay, as it's one of the major pieces of the sheer creepiness and immersion into the game, but the Butcher is especially sensitive to sound. Puppet Combo really nails the feeling of being in the home of a cannibalistic serial killer, as every action, every movement, every interaction with the environment has a reaction, at least in the form of a sound, and like other core elements of the game, has been improved, tweaked, edited, and refined in an attempt to make the game better over its course of being in beta. The Butcher will immediately investigate if the sound you produce nearest to him is loud enough, and you're better off running and hiding than you are ever to just wait him out where you are. But when the jump scare kicks in, prepare for both you and your eardrums to be slaughtered if you can't get out of there in time. Although having music in the Night Ripper makes sense, I think that there really is merit to having not that much music and Stay Out of the House, since I think the average player gets a sense of claustrophobia in the house, and it wouldn't be unreasonable to assume the killer was around every corner. Silence is a very powerful tool and should be used in horror carefully, and I think Puppet Combo uses it and the footsteps and breathing of the Butcher in a very effective way. After the jump scares are over, there's this thud sound that plays repeatedly a bit after the jump scare has happened and you've lost the killer. Stay Out of the House is the perfect example of a piece of art that's continuously been crafted over a relatively long period of time to make its experience better for the player. I think this 2-year scare can be used as an example of how to continuously improve upon a project long term. Every addition, subtraction, revamp, edit, or anything else done in an attempt to make the game better has really gone a long way to improving the game's quality, making it so well worth the 2-year wait for the finished product.